To give you an idea of how long this has taken me, I was originally going to come in with a joke about the new Jurassic World movie and just be like, oh, speaking of dinosaurs, just to try to be more concurrent, more relevant. And I'm just gonna proceed with the video now. But getting straight into it, how many of you have heard about a game called Fossil Fighters? Probably not too many because it's not a super well-known game. The most popular video I could find on it on YouTube was from Jaden Animations, and even that was a while ago. But I've managed to run into some really cool creators who have also made great videos on Fossil Fighters, such as these ones that I'll put up on screen right now, and generally opinions on it are pretty positive. However, the fact still remains that it just didn't get too much attention. Released on the DS in 2008, the game was developed by Red Entertainment, M2, and ArtThink, all companies that when I tried to search through other games they had involvement with, I honestly couldn't even try to recognize any of the "Hey, fighting game, Skullgirls Second Encore!" Fossil Fighters would be a game that's whole selling point was dinosaurs, and for a kid like me at the time and many others, that was enough. You get to collect fossils of different dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures and have them battle it out. And even though I've said this game wasn't really that popular, it must have done something right because the first game was enough to spawn a series. Judging from the reception people had and the fact that everyone would label this game as a hidden gem, me included, I mean, look at the title of the video, it's safe to say that this game held its own back in the day. And so that is exactly why we are here today, to look back on an incredible series with absolutely no bumps or snags in the formula at all and deserved all of the positive reception that it got with absolutely no regrettable changes to the formula. And so, welcome to Fossil Fighters. Our game starts off with us heading to Vivisaur Island, a place where dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures are excavated and revived to battle it out in fossil battles. After we give our name and talk about our favorite kind of dinosaur, which actually influences the clothing on our character, we are dropped off and taught everything there is to know. There aren't any preset names, so I decided to name our character Pixels because of how the game looks graphically. There are other resources to make this game look a little bit better, but I just wanted to play it in its original form. And that's about it. The game is very straight to the point and there really isn't any established story until a couple chapters into the game. Initial story stuff is kept episodic, with the only important things being the level up battles that are these tournament style fights you do at the end of every chapter, these enemies called the BB Bandits just generally being evil, and the characters you meet who will stick around for most of the story, like Rosie, a young girl who also gets into fossil battles, and Dr. Diggins, who is a melanated brother like me? In a game this early in my childhood? Say less! But he'll be teaching you most of the basic mechanics of the game. There are different areas in the game called dig sites that have unique fossils located within them. Your character is equipped with a sonar and a pickaxe that can be used to locate and excavate these fossils. You start off by storing 8 fossils total in your case, but you can increase that amount with upgrades to hold more fossils at a time when you're out excavating. More importantly, you can upgrade your sonar to scan larger areas all at once, avoid finding regular rocks, and find other fossil pieces that you couldn't find before. And that last one is definitely going to be the most important to get as soon as possible, and I'll let you know why as soon as we get into cleaning. Once you come back to the main town from any of the dig sites, it's time to pull out the X-ray, hammer, and drill and clean the fossils that you got to get the rewards that they contain. This will mostly be the bones of Vivisaurs who will be revived once you obtain the skull portion of the fossil. Once you revive a Vivisaur, it's yours to keep and use in battle, but you can also find different body parts of the Vivisaurs you get in order to make them stronger and help them learn new moves, including the body, arms, and legs. The last 2 body parts, being the arms and legs, will require you to upgrade your sonar to find them, which is why it's in your best interest to upgrade soon if you don't want to be limited to 2 moves per Vivisaur total. Luckily, it's not hard to get there when you obtain jewel fossils, another kind of fossil that can be obtained and cleaned to sell for larger amounts of money. And you'll also be able to get an upgraded hammer and drill to make cleaning easier as well. But finally, for the third pillar of this trio of mechanics, the battle system. In this game, you can carry 5 Vivisaurs at a time to switch around in your team, but you'll have an active team of up to 3 Vivisaurs, and feel free to bring whoever you want. Each Vivisaur comes with its own unique stats, moves, ailments, special abilities, and more that you'll discover through fighting. When you get into battle, there will be 3 different zones for each team: the attack zone, the support zones, which are both of these blue areas, and the escape zone in the back. Each zone operates exactly how it sounds. The attack zone is the most reliable place to deal damage, and can even let you attack the enemy's support zones too, but it's also where you are the most vulnerable to receiving damage as well. Support zones are where your other 2 party members can apply their unique support effects that can influence the attack zone's attack, defense, evasion, and accuracy stats. And this is important to pay attention to, since some Vivisaurs can even have negative effects on their own attack zone as a countermeasure to having a huge attack stat themselves, while others can be weaker overall but give incredible support effects to you or super debilitating stats to the enemy. The escape zone is where you can rotate your attack zone party member out for one of your support zone party members, but they will have to stay there for 2 turns without being able to act before occupying the open support zone. At least here they are invulnerable for their time in the escape zone. The actual battle starts off by seeing both teams' accumulative health and letting the lower health team go first. Each turn you'll get a consistent amount of fighting points depending on your character's rank, and it maxes out at a certain number depending on that rank too. If one of your Vivisaurs dies, then you'll also get a huge boost in fighting points to help give you a chance to come back. Each attack has different costs for fighting points and can of course deal varying amounts of damage, as well as apply ailments or buffs depending on the move you use. There's also a typing chart consisting of fire, earth, air, water, and a neutral element with no relationship to the other elements. These are the fundamentals of the battle system, but there is still so much to explore, including unique abilities like auto counter or high critical rates, certain Vivisaurs not having their damage output diluted from the support zone, so they essentially act as another attack zone without the increased vulnerability, team synergies unique to every Vivisaur that allow you to use special attacks that hit all opponents at once if all members of your team are still alive. It all makes the game worth experimenting with and gets you more and more invested with team composition and finding new Vivisaurs. Replaying the game again, I still feel like it holds up well today and that it's still pretty good, if not a little bit tedious. But I really love this battle system, and clearly my biases are there because I'm a huge nerd for dinosaurs. Excavating is pretty much as straightforward as it looks, but the cleaning is implemented really well and makes it feel really satisfying to do. The story, even when it comes together, isn't all that crazy, but for an early DS game, I really don't expect too much out of it. There are some really cool concepts introduced in the story, and I like the way that some things come together, but there's so much to cover in this video alone, so I really couldn't do it here. However, I'm not opposed to making a video on that, so let me know if you're interested. Plus, this game even has post-game content, so you have more story to experience, tougher battles to do, more dig sites to unlock, and more Vivisaurs that you could collect that you couldn't get in the main story. All of this to say, I really love this game and I enjoyed coming back to it even all these years later. So would you believe me that only 2 years after the release of Fossil Fighters, they would end up making a sequel that would become one of my favorite games of all time. And they would title this one Fossil Fighters Champions. Yes, it is true. Fossil Fighters Champions, the second game in the series, easily lands in my top 5, if not my top 3 favorite games of all time. This game means so much to me, and also it's just plainly an amazing game. I still remember being a little kid going to the store with my older brother and running to the games cage as usual and seeing it, the newest Fossil Fighters game. And of course I was amazed because if you didn't see a game shown in commercials back then, it just didn't exist. I put all my luck on the table to ask my brother if I could get the game just out of nowhere, and somehow I walked home with Fossil Fighters Champions in my hands. I can get lost in this game so easily, and I almost did when I was recording footage for this game again, because this is truly a perfected Fossil Fighters. And as a little tangent, obviously there's nothing on this DS screen. However, this is still Fossil Fighters Champions that I've had since I was a kid. Obviously that's not going to show well on camera. Let's put a picture side by side. This is real. I come back to this game like a lot. This time around, the game story immediately shows that we're going to be much more involved. We start off by choosing between a boy or a girl named Dino and Dina, or whatever you like to go by. I chose Dina just for some variety since we were already forced to play as a boy in the first game. We see our character Aura farming near the edge of a cliff before getting called out by Todd, our best friend in this game. He reminds us that we're here to find rogue Vivisaurs in the woods in hopes of, well, actually, I don't know. Todd, why are we just running around in the forest? I could have a giant dinosaur come out of nowhere and oh my god! This game has cutscenes. An Allosaurus shows up to attack and we are forced to the edge of a cliff until a man riding a Pteranodon comes to the rescue. Leaping off the cliff, he catches us and takes us both to safety. Once everything calms down, Todd recognizes the man as the one and only Joe Wild West, the greatest fossil fighter ever known and the owner of the Cagliostro Park where fossil battlers can compete. But before we can even get past introductions, the Allosaurus chasing us before is back, and so Joe offers Todd the chance to use one of his own Vivisaurs to fight it off. But instead, he fakes a stomachache out of fear and pussies out. So we are instead given the choice between 4 starter Vivisaurs to use, with different stats and all. We take our pick and get into our introductory fossil battle to take down the Allosaurus. After our success, Joe lets us keep our starter Vivisaurs and tells us he hopes that we both become proper fossil fighters someday. And so we do just that, because 2 years after this prologue, we are seen flying towards the Cagliostro Islands with the intent to participate in the Cagliostro Cup, a tournament for any and all fossil fighters to enter. And the reward for succeeding in this is ownership of the entire park. Really an incredible way to say you're quitting your job, Joe. And that's pretty much the basis of our story, but don't get it confused. This one definitely establishes itself way quicker than the first game's story does and gives you a better cast of characters that you'll be interacting with. Plus, some of the concepts in this game, such as the history of fossil battles and how we even got to this point of being able to revive literal dinosaurs to make them fight each other, is explained, and I just think that's really dope. But all of that is for a different time. For now, we gotta get into the meat and potatoes of this game. Luckily, the basis for the mechanics remain. Excavating, cleaning, and battling are still the name of the game, with a few tweaks and changes to make it better than before. Except for excavating. Don't get me wrong, it's not like the game made excavating bad or anything, it's just that it's still the same upgrades for the sonar. You go out, hit the A button in the right spot, and oh, look at that, you got Jesus. Similar to the last game, you can still run into other people trying to battle you for certain fossils. However, it's not for every single time you get a jewel fossil like in the previous game. It's definitely less frequent and more spread out. I will say that the areas you go in this game feel much more interesting out the gate. In the last game, I personally felt that areas don't really catch your eye as much until about the 4th dig site in. But even then, it's mostly just large squared out areas that are just meant to do their job. Here, I feel like things are exciting. It's not all flat grass or sand, there are actually set pieces and recognizable scenery, and the game knows it. I mean, look at the camera angle it gives you when you enter new areas. And now you can use a gondola in certain areas to excavate fossils from walls too, so that's neat. The cleaning is where things start to show their more significant changes. It's a bit of an in-between for excavating and cleaning, but besides the regular fossil rocks, along with jewels and dark fossils that contain rare versions of Vivisaur body parts, there are now a bunch more types of fossils that you can get. There are giant fossil rocks that have entire Vivisaur bodies within them, but will require you to really show your cleaning skills to get them clean in time. Curious fossil rocks will give you Vivisaurs who only have one full body part and require you to clean off the fossil on both sides. As well as wondrous and miraculous fossils. Wondrous fossils giving you a silver piece of one of the 4 main body parts that you can equip to any Vivisaur at all to increase their stats and change their coloring. It's different for every Vivisaur and for every body part, so if you want, you can search up what the colors are and just switch it for fun, or actually find the piece that you would like for a better stat pool. Just hope that whatever that stat pool falls into, you enjoy that color as well. And last but not least, the miraculous fossils are incredibly rare. This playthrough alone, I was only able to get 3 in total. These are golden skull fossils that will greatly increase all stats of any Vivisaur you put it on, but for certain other Vivisaurs, it will have a new and incredible effect that we'll have to save for the battle portion. Other than the fossils themselves, cleaning feels as good as the first game with the same upgrades and time plus item. However, this time there is a new addition called Buster Probe. This is when you hit a specific area that is different for each fossil you clean and will cause a large portion of the fossil to burst open, cleaning off a huge section from that fossil. Finding these is always worth it and can really help get your fossil cleaning scores up. I'm pretty sure I broke some speedrunning records for an 100% clean just by finding some of these. Not every single fossil has it, but it's always worth it to look. You can even purchase Buster Probes from the store that will show you exactly where that spot is for the fossil if you're curious enough, but those are expensive and you're definitely better off just trying to learn it yourself. But finally, after the excavating, the cleaning, and the collecting of Vivosaurs for an increased cast of 174 to collect from, it is finally time for the main event, being the fossil battles. You can still choose up to 5 Vivosaurs to keep with you at all times, but it's still 3v3 battles, and this time we got a larger field to work with. Instead of 4 zones from before, there are now a total of 6 spaces on the field. 3 spaces for the support zone and 3 spaces for the attack zone. No more escape zone and no more running away this time. No, instead, this time around, you can rotate your team as many times as you want in a single turn, and anyone can attack and can be targeted from anywhere on the field. Attacks, ailments, and type advantages pretty much work the same, but now there is spacing to worry about. Yeah, we got fighting games in RPGs now. Every Vivosaur is either close range, mid range, or long range, all meaning that any attack you use will become even more powerful depending on if you are spaced away from your target Vivosaur properly. For example, sauropods like Nigo here are long range, so if I attack someone from as far away as possible, I'll get the max amount of damage from him. But Eros here is close range, so he's much better at doing damage as closely as possible. That doesn't mean that he can't attack from the furthest position possible, but he's not going to get nearly as much damage as he could from being as close as possible. Support effects are back, but now since 2 Vivosaurs can be in the attack zone at once, the effects can now be split between both of them, whether that be against your opponent's attack zone or to benefit your own. And team attacks are back, but now you can still use them even when an ally Vivosaur dies, meaning that fights are even closer than before, even if the odds look stacked against you. All of these changes just add on to the increased strategic aspects of the game's battle system, and I love it. It's so interesting, it makes me want to try out more combinations of Vivosaurs. And don't think I forgot about what I said before about the miraculous fossil rocks. Certain Vivosaurs have a greater affinity with the gold skull fossils you get when equipped to them, and can super evolve into completely new beasts that have different stats and even new movesets with new effects. If you keep an eye out for the change in dialogue when selecting a Vivosaur, you'll know who you can use it on to get a super evolution. Just be sure to save before cleaning these, because just like the wondrous fossils, they have to be equipped immediately. So if you find that you don't have a Vivosaur you want to use it on, you're just gonna have to be happy with the stat boost and keep it pushing. I will say that the super evolvers are really cool too, but it's weird they're just like random creatures, right? Like, not everything in either of these games has just been dinosaurs, and that's still cool. Like, the variety is amazing, but it's always confused me, like, why we just get like a fairy dragon from a dinosaur? The best part of these new additions to the game is that the CPUs will use these mechanics against you. Multiple of the same Vivosaur, as well as wondrous and miraculous equipped Vivosaurs, are able to battle you in the main story and in the post game. Now, if only the AI could be a little more sensible with its strategies, maybe we can get somewhere. It's also worth mentioning that in this game, your fighter rank that determines how much FP you recover each turn, and your max limit is not tied to the story like in the first game. You earn experience from the main storyline and from side quests that are available in the game too. These range from battles to fun mini games and even dinosaur trivia to get rewards and experience you'll want if you plan on getting some of those really high cost attacks from the Super Evolver Vivosaurs. But if you don't want to, it is not required to be max rank to complete the game. Also, Vivosaurs have an increased maximum level of 12 in the first game to a max level of 20 here, but you only need 50 battle points per level up, which are your experience points, instead of 100 per level up like in the last game. The reason I bring this up too is because Vivosaur's support effects in this game also scale to their level. So for example, Kamso here is known for its devastating support effects on the opponent's team, but if you want to get the full effect, you better be using him properly in fights and leveling him up. No shortcuts or fake fans around here. Even with everything I've covered so far about this game, just like the previous title, there is so much to talk about in terms of content. I think the story's pretty good, the cast of characters I actually really like, the post-game is so plentiful with its side quests and the tournaments that you enter, including bringing back previous characters from the last game such as Rosie that you can fight. Even when the game was coming out initially, they would give out DLC over Wi-Fi for the game with completely new missions, new Vivisaurs to collect, and just stacking on all the content that you can experience in this game. Really, I still recommend this game today. However you may get your hands on the game, I would say go about it at your own pace. Choose either Fossil Fighters or Champions. If you're asking me, I would recommend Champions, obviously, and just enjoy it. Like, do stuff, spend hours and hours just digging up new Vivisaurs, cleaning, exploring areas, making your team, all of that great stuff. As I've acknowledged, some of it can be a bit tedious, so if it doesn't look like the thing for you, then I get it. You're wrong, but I get it. Nah, it's jokes, but this is still a really great game. I know I didn't talk too much about the story or lore or anything like that, but it would just be a lot to go ahead and fit into one video, along with just talking about the entirety of the games too. But hey, if you got to this point in the video, comment down below if you would like it, and make sure you hit the like button if you've been enjoying yourself so far, because I wouldn't mind doing more videos like this. But wow, would you just look at the time. I guess that's it. Nothing of significance left here. No suspiciously lengthy amounts of video untouched or unanswered questions from the video title. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that fun things, and you can click off. You can leave now. You can go. There is a third. 4 years after the release of Fossil Fighters Champions, we would finally get a game that made the Fossil Fighters franchise a trilogy. And fun fact, I never played this one. I think it's better we just get into it. Introducing Fossil Fighters Frontier. We start off with a confrontation between Stryker and Dr. Blackraven, and this is where we also get to have a first look at the Vivisaurs in action. Oh, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of these first two straight out the gate, but like I said, it's just the first two, so I'm sure we'll see some better models down the line. Blackraven also mentions that he has a Dark Vivisaur specifically, which is definitely new, but the previous titles had Dynamitons, Bonysaurs, and Zombiesaurs, so it's not a crazy concept. They battle it out, and after quickly defeating him, Blackraven curses Stryker and says that he would have been successful if he had more time, revealing some kind of Vivisaur in a Mewtwo situation and cutting to black. And so our story is... oh. Well, there it is. It just explains a chunk of what we're doing right there, I guess.
Adventures right around the bend, and the world's got wonders to spare. Prehistoric lore to restore and befriend. So get out there, go if you dare. If you dig enough, you'll see there is power old as time. Wondrous and thunderous creatures to free. Hit the road and Vivisaur, it's your moment to shine.
Getting to the actual game, we start off selecting between a boy or a girl whose preset names are Jura and Tria, a little more creative than the previous Dino and Dina. We're greeted with a small Danganronpa cast of characters who are being led by Stryker to become wardens, those responsible for keeping the peace and answering to any trouble that occurs in the fossil parks. The fossil parks being just locations in Asia, Europe, and North America instead of like some fictional islands like in the last game, so I guess we got tired of coming up with those. So to show us the ropes, we hop in a bone buggy, the vehicle you'll be using to find fossils and encounter rogue Vivisaurs that we'll have to take down if we run into them. Yup, it's proper Jurassic Park scenario, and Vivisaurs are just walking around, which is cool, but also makes me question if this was ever meant to be a horror game. Anyways, in order to become wardens, we need to complete our warden tests, which will then allow us to gain our licenses. During these tests, we stumble across a mysterious room where this machine is holding a tiny Vivisaur. Once accidentally released, he decides to make a break for it. So, as we give chase to capture it, we run into what the fuck is that? In an attempt to save the little guy, we are quickly taken down by a Gorgo until Stryker comes in to save the day, because having 2 dead kids on your first day is not the best look. Once returning the Vivisaur to safety, we're separated into pairs so we can complete our warden test that will give us our licenses to actually be considered official. But before that, we decide to head back into our bone buggies to train a bit and actually get practice fighting alongside our partner. That is until the same Gorgo that we ran into decides to get his lick back and drop boulders on our buggies, putting us out of commission. And it's something about a giant carnivorous dinosaur having to use boulders to stop us that is so, like, you're pathetic, dude. Like, go home. But before the Gorgo gets the chance to finish us off, the tiny Vivosaur escapes from the lab it's being held in to our location to try to save us, where we see it transform into a full-size Vivosaur to fight off the Gorgo. Luckily, once everything gets cleaned up, we're able to team up with Roland, who was our assigned partner for our warden test, and earn our licenses. After congratulating the team on their victories, we're pulled aside by Stryker and told that the small Vivosaur formed some kind of bond with us that allowed him to sense when we were in danger and jump to help us. Because of this bond, he asked that we take him with us on our journey, so we hook him up with a little scarf because we like Android 17, I guess, name him Nibbles, and head out on our adventure. And so our real story as a warden starts here. And since this is the game of the video, without getting into too much detail of all the story, there is one major aspect that this story centers itself around pretty consistently that we have to talk about. And that aspect of this story is Nibbles. And Nibbles is actually a Digimon. Okay, so look, Nibbles has the ability to evolve. And I know that's a feature in the last game that we just talked about, but it's not quite like that. Nibbles has the ability to evolve multiple times throughout the story, and does so as you progress throughout the adventure. The reason for this is because Nibbles was created by Black Raven for the sole purpose of harnessing an unlimited amount of dark energy. The thing about dark energy is that it can be given to any Vivosaur, but only in very small amounts, and even then, the strongest of Vivosaurs can only fight with it for a small amount of time before being completely destroyed. Nibbles is the caveat to this, and was meant to be used to become unstoppable until Stryker stopped Black Raven and apprehended the Vivosaur. But even though he was advised multiple times to destroy Nibbles, Stryker saw it as an unfair act to the Vivosaur since it's not his fault for being created for this purpose and was trying to find a way to hold it. That is until we came in and Nibbles started showing kindness towards us, which is something that he has never done with anybody before. So in the story, you'll mainly be expected to use Nibbles, but it's never really mandated. He's just the first ever real poster boy for any of these games, and the reason I say Digimon instead of Pokemon is because bro evolves 4 times and looks like this. Like, come on, that's War Greymon, dude. But now it's about time we finally moved on to what makes Fossil Fighters Frontier unique from the rest of the series and dive into the gameplay. You'll spend most of your time in your bone buggy, which is luckily not limited to the first vehicle that you get. Not only can you customize it with better parts, including stronger sonar and tools to make excavation and cleaning easier like the previous titles, but you'll also be able to purchase different kinds of buggies with different stats, such as speed or load, which is the value limit for how many upgrades and how good of upgrades you can equip to the buggy. You can also change the colors. Look, it's red, so it's cool now. The buggy itself controls about as well as it looks. It's pretty sluggish, especially in early game. They try to give you a drift mechanic, which is not useful at all, even later when you get time trials in the game where you can race through set paths in different worlds with your buggy. But there is a quick turn mechanic when you're stopped that lets you adjust your direction pretty well. The better your vehicle upgrades, the more stuff you can do in each world, like breaking through rocks and debris to make new paths, and launch off of ramps with enough speed to reach new areas where unique fossils are hidden. Really, it gets the job done, and that's about as much as you can expect, but considering 9/10 of the entire game are spent in this thing, you're gonna want to get used to it. The game has the same fundamental system for cleaning fossils with your standard X-ray, hammer, and drill, but this time around, instead of collecting fossils that you keep in a case and bring back to clean, you just drive up to the spot where the fossil is located and clean it right there. And of course, if it's a new fossil, you can have it revived and added to your... Yeah, you're seeing that right. You do not need to have the skull portion of the fossil for a Vivosaur to be revived. You can instead get any piece of an undiscovered Vivosaur and that will be enough. I will immediately say when it comes to these aspects, this is a much better quality of life. It completely cuts out the middleman. There's no longer having to upgrade your case and then go into a dig site, collect a bunch of fossils, come back and hope that the new fossil that you collected isn't just the same fossil over and over again, labeled new because you haven't cleaned it yet. Cleaning in this game though was a learning curve for me. Every fossil is pretty much treated like the giant fossils in the previous title, so all of them give you this camera control for looking around while you clean, even when you have smaller fossils that don't need it. And some of these are tough cleans. The delineation between when you break the primary layer to the secondary layer of the fossil, like in the last games, is similar, but I think the art style just makes it tougher to tell. Also, it doesn't help you that this game gives you 60 seconds instead of the typical 90 seconds for fossils, and you have to upgrade your battery on your bone buggy to have more time consistently. Overall, I got better. I don't think there's one definitively greater cleaning experience between this and the previous titles, more of just getting used to it, except for the camera function. I really didn't enjoy cleaning just one fossil piece with about as much space as a fully assembled skeleton when the previous games could fit those types of things on the screen all at once. And this is going to be the case most of the time, where you're cleaning a very large part that is actually one part of the skeleton until you unlock challenge gates for different worlds. Challenge gates are more difficult areas in every world that usually contain a Vivisaur that is much stronger than the surrounding ones in that area. This Vivisaur in question is called a fossil eater, and they usually start off asleep when you enter the area, but will wake up and steadily eat the rare fossils within the gates that you're meant to get. I will say that the most interesting thing about these gates is that they're organized as puzzle rooms, where you take advantage of the setup to reach the fossil eater and defeat it before excavating the fossil. Beating the fossil eater really isn't difficult at all in my opinion, but if you don't have strong cleaning tools, you're not getting any of the full skeleton fossils in these gates. That's another thing about cleaning in this game. Previous titles had you use the regular hammer and drill, and you could buy a super hammer and a super drill that were stronger, but you could still get the job done with your base tools for pretty much any fossil you got. Instead, now the game will steadily give you access to new hammers and drills that are stronger than the last, but it's not a huge boost between every version of them, so it just feels like a padded out system to get you to grind out more funds for getting better tools, or at least wait until you get access to something really good. So I'd say it's best to hold off at least until the game gives you access to the shop, where you'll be able to purchase timers like the previous games and chisels, which are new to Frontier and allow you to break off large sections of rocks at once. And as you can see, rare fossils make a return, but instead of super evolving, they instead give you a different move for obtaining them.
Hold on a sec. Is this an amazing addition to this game?
Yeah, instead of getting more fossil parts of a Vivisaur and learning the next set move in its arsenal, each body part will give you a preset move attached to that part. And when you get the same body part in its rare form, you now have the choice between two different moves to equip to the Vivisaur, letting you gain more freedom to customize and create strategies with your team. Oh, and jewel fossils are back too. That's one way that you'll be able to get the money in the game to buy stuff for your bone buggy, among other items. What is that? What the hell is this? Rogue Vivisaur near. What am I supposed to do about that? Do I leave? Help! Help! Oh, it's just letting me know my surroundings. That was scary. For a second there, I thought I was just gonna get jumped in the middle of a cleaning. So I should mention, you can be stopped mid-clean if a rogue Vivisaur decides to run into you. And in case you were wondering, yes, it does take away your opportunity to finish whatever you're cleaning and reap the rewards, even if you are already above the meter needed to succeed. Since it wants to be shown off so badly, we should really talk about the most important thing here: the battle system. You'll see that at a glance there is something very different here, but before I get into the differences in this game's battle system compared to the previous titles, let's just detail out how it all works. When you enter a fight, you'll be given this screen to decide which Vivisaur you want to fight with. Yes, a singular Vivisaur. Although you can access any Vivisaur you've revived at any point instead of having to carry 5 at a time maximum, which is nice. Battles are still typically 3v3, however, the other 2 Vivisaurs on your team must be from partners you make in the story called Paleo Pals. You'll get most of them through the main story and can get some more through side quests too, but each will have a distinct Vivisaur to their name that can't be switched and can't be controlled at all by the player, just the computer. Similar to the switch in Champions, turn order is decided by speed now, but instead of the collective speed of a team deciding who goes first, it's done individually for each Vivisaur. You still have 4 moves that you can use that have different fighting point values and properties connected to them, such as ailments, but this time around they'll also affect your stance. Each Vivisaur can face either forward, backwards, up, or down, and are strengthened or weakened depending on if they're in a preferred stance that is unique to each Vivisaur. Usually attacks will result in a change of stance for you and the opponent's Vivisaur. To better explain this, let's use an example. Gorgo is weak in the upwards facing stance, so Tricera, who is the slowest in the rotation, uses an attack that will force him to face up. Since the turn restarts and I'm the fastest of all the Vivisaurs here with Lofus, I get to attack while Gorgo is still in that stance to do heavy damage. And even though the attack I use doesn't change Gorgo's stance as indicated here, since it's his turn next, he resets to the forward facing stance by default. So it's kind of like positioning in Champions, not exactly obviously, but that is the change that we're going for here. There are exceptions to some Vivisaurs like any Pterosaur or any flying dinosaur in the game that heavily boosts its chance to evade an attack when it's in the upward stance, and can also never be put into the backward stance either. Honestly, lucky them, because the backward stances just have the Vivisaur look back at you while shaking ass, and it's the goofiest looking thing in the whole game. The type chart is still back, so elemental advantages is still a thing, but for whatever reason they just switched the positions of earth and air, so now fire beats air and earth beats water? I guess Pokemon even changes its type relationships, so it's not the craziest thing. But really the biggest thing that will decide how a fight goes is going to be the support shots. These are stat changes that you can use in the middle of an attack animation right before it makes contact to increase your attack power, accuracy, likelihood of an ailment taking effect, etc. You can also combo them by using multiple at once to increase the changes that it gives you. And you can do the same thing when being attacked. So if it looks like you're about to die or take a lot of damage, you can increase defense, evasion, or just recover health on the spot, which is fair. You can have up to 4 different kinds of support shots, and you'll have to refill them every once in a while since they'll all have a limit in battle. Your Paleo Pals come with different ones too, and will use them to help you out. However, any Vivisaur that is actually being controlled by a trainer will also have them and use them against you as well. I would have really liked to not have to use these support shots at all because I thought it was such an outside factor to the fight, and in the beginning I did try avoiding using them, but then I discovered it's actually the deciding factor of most fights. Plus, even if I didn't use them, that doesn't stop the computers on my team, and especially the enemy team, for using them. And since it's such a quick decision to do, it's less strategic and more... Anyways, there's also this meter that builds up in the corner called a boost meter. Certain moves give the meter a specific amount of charge, and when you fully charge it, you get to land an extra attack that is special to that Vivisaur. But this doesn't happen too much, at least not in my own experience. Usually in late game boss battles, I'll get one in. The boost meter is shared among the team, so if another teammate decides to take it from you, then it's tough luck, but at least they'll do what they can to win the match for you. 2 more things I need to talk about is the character rank system, not to be confused with the Vivisaur leveling systems, and the tournaments. Your character rank is important in these games because it is directly tied into your FP recharge and FP maximum values, essentially how much fighting points you get each turn and how much you can have total. In the first game, your character rank was tied to tournament fights called level up battles, which you had to do in each chapter until you hit the max rank, since it was directly part of the story. In Champions, the Cagliostro Cup is a significant part of the story as the game's tournament, but your character rank was not directly tied to it. Instead, you now gained experience by doing main quests and side quests in the game, meaning you could go for the max rank for your character for the best FP values, or just play the game without ever hitting your max rank, which I did for this playthrough. Only thing with that is that you might not get to use certain high FP cost moves for Vivisaurs if you don't rank up for it, but it won't be super limiting to your overall access of moves. Frontier works the same as Champions, where you rank up with different side quests along with the main story, but where Champions has a set number of side quests you can do to complete the game, Frontier will give you random access to side quests based on the areas you have unlocked. These range from fighting certain rogue Vivisaurs to collecting and cleaning certain fossils. Turning in these side quests gets you experience towards your rank. But another thing you can do is the optional tournaments the game gives you. Optional tournaments? Right, so maybe I'm pandering to traditional mechanics, but Frontier doesn't make you go through consistent tournaments. Instead, you can choose to participate whenever you please in the 7 Scramble, which is kind of a weird system. Each tournament is separated by different days of the week that give you a different theme for each day, and each have 5 increasing levels of difficulty to them that you have to go through in order. So for example, you can't do the 3rd rank tournament without getting through the 1st and 2nd rank. And you probably guessed it by now, but you only have access to whatever tournaments are assigned to that day of the week in real life. So if you're some kid going on a road trip with the family and you can't charge your 3DS, better luck next time, loser. Also, that optional part is gonna need an asterisk next to it because your character rank is tied to the tournaments. Sort of. Again, let me explain. Your character's maximum potential ranking is based on your warden license class, and the only way to increase this class is to beat the tournaments. But to rank up your class, you have to beat the same amount of tournaments as the difficulty ranking of those tournaments. So that means you only have to beat one 1-star difficulty tournament to rank up to the next class, but you'll eventually have to beat 2 2-star difficulty tournaments all the way up to at least 5 5-star difficulty tournaments if you plan on getting the highest ranking warden license class available to you to grind for in the story. But since higher difficulty tournaments are only unlocked by beating their predecessors, you'll essentially have to do at least 5 of each tournament difficulty level.
This was just an odd system to me because it felt more like a mobile game trying to pad things out so they could milk the amount of time you spent on the game, which technically is a mobile game, but you know what I'm trying to say. Of course, as soon as you unlock the 7 Scramble, you can just play as many tournaments on whatever day you're playing the game on, but early on, you're not going to be able to just luck your way through the 3-star, 4-star, and especially not the 5-star tournaments. But also, since your teammates are using the same FP pool that you're using, you're gonna wanna come back because you're going to cap yourself out, and you're never gonna be able to use any of your bigger moves by just stagnating. I just don't understand why a better, more streamlined system for these tournaments weren't made since we had the other previous titles to go off of and they did it so well. I'm thinking that the best reason is just to have more of a reason for the player to come back more often to the game. I don't know, maybe Street Pass was really big for this game too, but it didn't feel that way. It just felt like padding. I came out of this experience perplexed, torn, confused, and other terms I could pull out of a thesaurus. Really, there were a good handful of concepts in this game that I really appreciated. Not too much in action, unfortunately, but definitely in concept, which is a clear sign of ambition for the game. And those positive aspects are what I want to highlight first.
The quality of life changes, including excavating on the spot and revival with any fossil piece. It's great. If I didn't have to worry about being attacked mid-clean and the quality of the cleaning mechanic was a little bit better, then it'd be perfect. Fossil Fighters has always had a decent roster of Vivisaurs, and getting new ones is the best part, so making the experience more streamlined is the right move in my opinion. Exploring large areas with secrets around and Vivisaurs everywhere to make it feel more involved is so cool and makes a lot of settings more memorable, especially comparing to the very first title where the maps are just large patches of land with nothing really unique to them. Unfortunately, in any of the Fossil Fighters games, cleaning fossils is inherently tedious, and the rogues become more of a nuisance than anything in my opinion, forcing you to either preemptively fight them before cleaning any fossils, or take the risk of being stopped mid-clean. But with that aside, I still really enjoyed the overall concept. Plus, my favorite moments are just being in areas when the game embraced that a world where dinosaurs just roam free is actually really terrifying, especially in the darker settings. It actually scared me in a couple of situations, but it was the best. I didn't really get into the details of it, but I don't mind the story. The villain feels like he's just evil to be evil, which is not the best, especially since the other games I feel had better villain inspirations in my opinion. But considering that 1, I didn't go into detail with those either, and 2, this is a kid's game about dinosaurs, I can let that slide. One of the best parts of the story for me is the post-game, where you can interact with literally every character to get their own mini subplot that will only expand on the character and give you access to special areas, but also unlock a secondary Vivisaur that each of them can use as your Paleo Pal. Some of the characters you'll meet are also completely separate from the main story, so you'll also get a bunch of new Paleo Pals as well. Heccat, my beloved. My absolute favorite thing about the game is effectively doubling the move pool for every Vivisaur. This was awesome, especially since the game doesn't make it so that one move just makes the other obsolete, but instead gives you some options so you can work out a unique moveset to cater to your playstyle. The only thing that would suck about this is getting one move that's huge in fighting point cost and you can't really use, but I didn't really have this issue too much, and you can always switch out Vivisaurs on the spot at any time.
Unfortunately, that's kind of where the positives stop for me. I really gave this game a good chance. When I was revisiting these for this video, I played this game first instead of playing the other two games and then just inevitably getting burnt out when I got to this one. And I genuinely played through this game and looked around for everything that it had to offer and just took my time to enjoy whatever mechanics it was going to throw at me. So understand, I didn't just rush through this game to get a review out, and these are just my genuine takes.
I do not like this battle system. It's that simple. And let's clarify something. Can you no brain unga bunga your way through a number of the fights in any of these three games? Yes, I would not call any of these hard. I would, however, say there is, funny enough, a difficulty spike in each of these games that really test out if you're taking advantage of the game's systems the best way that you can. I really don't like support shots. I can only imagine what using support shots in a fight against real players must have been like. I am not exaggerating in the slightest when I say it really makes the strategy of fights just... well, that, and besides the type advantage, you really don't have much control over anything. Control is the magic word here, something that you don't have over your team. I unironically had so many fights where my Vivisaur died and the CPU teammates don't use support shots on me when it's most vital, and I am stuck watching the fight happen with nothing to do but to throw out support shots and hope my teammates got it. Stances would be better in my opinion if I could take more advantage of them by allowing my team to go all at once. One thing that was on my mind while I was playing this game was that pterosaurs feel super overpowered early on because individually you can use a move that puts you in an upward stance and be safer when you're being attacked since your evasion spikes so high. And I think that's a good example of the game taking advantage of individual properties of Vivisaurs instead of making me think of team dynamics more. But unfortunately, even more than that, I was thinking about how if I were to turn a Vivisaur around to put them in a weak position one turn, for example, I better hope that my teammate's turn is next and that they take advantage before it gets to that Vivisaur so they can reset. Both things that I have no control over. And every Vivisaur having unique stance preferences initially was really weird to me. I feel like positioning was so easily explained in the last game comparatively that I don't know what happened here. One thing that I will say that the game showed me is this sweat animation that Vivisaurs have whenever you hover over a move that is best against that stance that they're in. And I did get better at battling through opening the info tab more often and checking on the weak stances of Vivisaurs to see if I had a move to influence them in that direction for a teammate. So overall, I'll say it's just a matter of learning as you go and knowing what to look for. And I'll take accountability for not adjusting to those aspects sooner. But this still means nothing when support shots come into the room. Also, there's a timer in battle, which for multiplayer I can understand, but it's always there for single player too. And I just don't understand why. Like, you can just get rid of that for single player story mode. It shouldn't be there.
And that is just the battle system, but it is my biggest gripe, so everything else doesn't feel as offensive.
Buggy controls can be much better, especially since they really want you to appreciate the customization and overall use of them. It sucks that this is the case because I really do enjoy the concept of the challenge gates, but it's just not all that fun to control the buggy in my opinion. I feel like cleaning in this game should be made easier early on, either by bringing that timer back to 90 seconds as a standard, or by making the fossils maybe a little bit sturdier. I'm not saying that I'm perfect at cleaning off fossils, but I never got the hang of it enough to consistently land 100% or even close to that back to back, even though I could in the last games. But that could just be me because I played both of those games a lot, but then again, cleaning in those games translated pretty well in between each other. The tournament system being locked beyond certain days is not necessary at all. I can understand if you want to make it optional to focus on the story more, but it does not need to be Monday through Sunday, play only on that day. Rogue Vivosaurs could just not interrupt a clean. I know it's more immersive and I appreciate it, but then let me retry the fossil right away after I beat the Rogue Vivosaur. Don't just break the damn thing and have me come back to respawn it. Sometimes there isn't even a Vivosaur for miles, then suddenly, oh hey, I'm not interrupting. Like, yes, you are actually, motherfucker. And speaking of the Vivosaurs, dude, I just did not like the designs, bro. Almost none of them really grew on me. In the last game, it's not like every single design was great to me. I had my favorites and I had some that I honestly didn't like, but in this game, it feels like at their best, they can just translate the design pretty well. And at worst, it gets pretty bad. Like, I honestly doubt that if I did a tier list comparing the champions designs to this game's designs, that it would get anything above. Maybe. Okay, that settles it. Let's compare some designs back to back for the first time. We won't do many, but just a handful to see kind of where I stand. We're gonna pick a few right here. And this is just for designs. Obviously, I'll be able to find better quality renders for Frontier, but that's not gonna be the deciding factor here. So I think it's only appropriate that we start with the three pillars of the dinosaur world: T-Rex, Triceratops, and Pterodactyl. I won't lie, T-Rex in the previous games was one of the designs I didn't like very much. I get it's meant to look scary, but it's just not doing it for me. But I do like the patterning, and the official art for it makes it look a lot better than its model, at least. Compared to Frontier, where honestly, this is the most standard design for a dinosaur in this whole game without any crazy changes. I don't get this mohawk situation, and that face still feels like only a mother could love it. But I'm actually gonna give the point to Frontiers. It works, and it's not a super offensive design, I don't think. On top of that, Triceratops and Pterodactyl are pretty much one for one. I still don't like how the style of Frontiers makes them feel, like with how the eyes look on the Pterodactyl, but these are two primary examples of translating the Vivosaur perfectly into the new style the best way they could. So I'll call it even for both sides. And now to pick out some of my favorites, I got a little laptop here. Carcharodontosaurus, or Karcher in the titles, has one of my favorite designs easily, man. Pop quiz, actually. Can you tell just by the design of this Vivosaur what country it comes from? I'm being serious. I'll give you a chance to pause the video and guess for yourself. Go ahead, observe it, think, look at its patterning, look at the colors that it's using, and if you guessed Egypt, you'd actually be right on the dot. And if you didn't guess Egypt, leave. I'm trying to make a point. The design of the eyes and the use of yellow and blue with that patterning is very telling. And I feel like this is just an example of great design philosophy. The teeth kind of throw me off with how rounded they are, but besides that, I think everything about the design is perfect. Versus Frontier's version of the same dinosaur, yellow? They murdered my boy, man. Like, why did they make him like this? Why is he so bright yellow now? And also, why is his like chest and jaw like brick wall? What was the point of that? And also, why are his teeth orange? Brush his teeth, give him some Colgate. Quetzalcoatlus, or just Coatlis in the games, is another big favorite of mine. I just think it's really cool with the patterning and sort of tropical theming. And in Frontiers, I guess this is cool in its own way. Not everything has to be a one-for-one copy. But also why? Something else to notice about this Coatlis is that in Frontier, it is a fire type instead of it being an air type like usual. And so I'm thinking that the redesign was based off of trying to make it reflect its typing a little bit better, but I would still easily give this to the previous titles in terms of design. But this kind of sums up my issues with the new designs. There are some better ones, very rarely, but usually they either match their counterparts really well into this game style, or at worst, they can be pretty offensive to look at, in my opinion. Okay, but one more I want to do. Elasmosaurus, or Elasmo in the games, easily another one of my favorites in terms of play and design. Again, love the patterning, love the use of colors. It has all the phases of the moon up against its body, just the aura farm, because why not? And so in Frontiers, okay, so Elasmo isn't in the game.
which sucks. But a different one, Stupendemus, or just Pandem, because I know the proper name is a mouthful, but this one is also really cool to me. The design itself isn't too crazy, but the way they take advantage and utilize its design and its attack animations and everything like that is excellent. So in Frontiers, where are all the Vivisaurs?
The last and most heartbreaking thing about Frontiers, right next to the battle system, is that it has the smallest roster out of all the games and doesn't contain any marine-based dinosaurs or any non-dinosaur prehistoric creatures. I could understand the former because there's no deep water area to explore with your bone buggy and run into rogue marine-based Vivisaurs, and honestly that would be really terrifying. But that doesn't excuse the latter for me, and I feel like a bunch of non-dinosaur based prehistoric creatures would do even more to bring the areas to life too. On top of the roster problem, some Vivisaurs just have 2 or 3 recolor variants for different areas, and I don't mean variants like how some dinosaurs just have the same body type for their models. Technically, you had 4 recolors for every Vivisaur in Champions with the super fossils, and yeah, that would only change its stats, but at least it wasn't sold to me as a completely different Vivisaur. Fossil Fighters Frontier is not a game I'd recommend for a fan of the series, but it does have some real attempts at making something special here, and that's what I think is important: the game's failed ambitions. Honestly, on its own merits, it's not a bad experience, I would say, just kind of alright. Comparing this game to its predecessors might actually be the downfall of this game, since there was a clear goal and upgrade to the systems that were revisited from Fossil Fighters' original title to Champions. And then we just kind of toss that out with this title. Honestly, the game has a more streamlined experience with more active parts for the player to combat the inherent slow nature of the game. Again, the larger move pools, the explorable areas, the expansive post-game, and decent enough story, there is something here to appreciate about Frontiers, and others share that sentiment towards the game as well. But if I'm being honest, I'd probably just want a game closer to Champions where we take advantage of certain aspects from Frontier. Maybe some walkable areas along with the bone buggy areas for better variety. Having teammates to fight alongside is fine, but give the player control, or if that's not something you want, then just let us fight with 3 of our own Vivisaurs. Keep the old battle system and get rid of the support shots. It really doesn't make the battle system feel any better and can just make fights continue for longer than needed. And keep working on the unique animations for these Vivisaurs, since it gives all of them a ton of personality in their attacks and when they take damage as well.
I may have went into this game with implicitly negative expectations, since even when the game was first coming out and it had commercials out for it when I was a kid, I had already made my judgments based off of what I saw and decided to avoid it. And even though I did pretty much list a bunch of less than preferable aspects about the game, I am glad that I gave it a fair chance, since I like to give an experienced opinion on these types of things. But something else I must do before I end the video is bring in the community notes section. I'm very grateful to anybody who actually spent the time giving me their opinions on this game. It really helped with the video, and it has been a while since I've done a video like this, but we cannot close it out without seeing where the community lands on this game. And some people just have a way with words, don't they? But on a more serious note, there were a bunch of people who talked about how the game was actually pretty good on its own, but compared to its predecessors, it wasn't all that. And I think that hits the nail right on the head, to be honest. Like I said before, the game has a lot of interesting concepts, and some of them people actually really enjoy, such as the bone buggies and the overall world immersion and just being able to drive around, see rogue Vivisaurs everywhere, and they think that's really cool. The general consensus on Paleopals though is pretty negative. I bet they could have just fixed that whole thing by just letting you control the Vivisaurs that your Paleopals have, but some people have their favorites. I mean, I know I really liked Sasuke and Elric. Those are the 2 that I really enjoyed using in the game, but overall I do agree Paleopals and just not having control over your Vivisaurs makes no sense. Some people mentioned how they really like the soundtrack of this game too. I didn't really hear anything that stood out to me, me. But to be fair, the previous games didn't really have too much that stood out to me. There's probably 1 or 2 tracks, and I'll put those up right now for an example, that I liked, but generally I don't think the OSTs of any of these games are something to write home about. With the exception of Paleo Pals and having CPUs control your team's Vivisaurs, there is a delineation in people who actually think the battle system is pretty good versus those who don't like it. I guess I can see myself enjoying stances and changes in stances if I got to control my team. It's just too big of a factor. We can't just ignore that as a factor. But overall, the separation in opinions is actually pretty plentiful. Some people are like the battle system is good, some people say it's not. Some people actually like the designs, some people don't. I'm on that side. Just to highlight some more messages that I really appreciated, this person Dimlug went super into the things that they like versus the things that they don't like. Thank you so much for that. Guanlon X said that it's Gen 5 all over again, referring to Gen 5 of Pokemon, that in 6 months people will be calling Frontier the best game in the series, and I can't lie to you, bro. You couldn't be more off. There is nobody who's going to be playing this game, I guess besides me, so there's the exception, but there is nobody who's playing these games, playing all of them, and then looking at Frontiers and being like, you're the best. If that's her opinion, that opinion is right, man. I just can't agree. Some people mentioned how they didn't use nibbles at all in their playthroughs, and I thought that was really interesting because I did switch up which Vivisaurs I used most of the time just out of interest, but you could really run through this entire game with just one Vivisaur. I mean, you could run through the other games with just one team, but at least you'll be using a minimum of 3 different Vivisaurs. Also, from one of those same people, they actually showed me their real save file of Fossil Fighters Frontier on their 3DS, and oh my god, bro, like I don't even know how I would get to that amount of time. Like, but thank you so much for showing anybody who watches this video that I have clearly reliable sources. Like, this is commitment right here. But anyways, I think that's finally going to do it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. This was super fun. I love to have any excuse to talk about some of my favorite games of all time, which, I mean, Fossil Fighters Frontier did not make that list, unfortunately. Who would have guessed? But Fossil Fighters in general and Fossil Fighters Champions especially means so much to me, and this was a really fun video to put together especially. And so to anybody who clicked on the video or even looked at this a little bit, thank you so much. And to anybody who made it to this part of the video, whoa. Like, I really appreciate it. Make sure that you hit like and go ahead and comment what you felt, and if you've played Fossil Fighters before, and especially even Fossil Fighters Frontier, and what your opinions are on it. But thanks again, I'm heading out, and most importantly, make sure that you have a great day.